Hey, happy Friday afternoon, everybody. Scott Beebe, the Business on Purpose platform. And it is Friday. We are getting ramped up for the weekend. But as I've told many of you before, man, I love the week. I love the weekend. Have a blast on the weekend. But I love the week because we get to wake up every day and liberate small business owners from the chaos of working in their business. And I wanted to talk to you real quick about an opportunity. I just got done spending some time with a small business owner here locally where we live. And we got to hang out and spend a lot of time together and just talk back and forth about life and about business. And this is the beauty of being a small business owner. And it's also the struggle and the reality that life intermingles with business. It all connects. I tell people all the time, his biggest myth in business is, quote, it's just business, because it's never just business. And as we were walking through and just talking about kind of where we are in life and where we are in business and all of these things, my friend started opening up to me about just kind of where he's at, specifically with the business and how that entails into life. And we started walking through where he's at, where he wants to go. And it led into an interesting discussion, and one that I wanted to have with you, especially on a Friday afternoon, because you're about to go into a weekend. And the weekend, a lot of times we say we don't want to do anything. But the reality is when the weekend comes and nothing's on the book and nothing is scheduled, then all of a sudden we get a little tense. We're like, I feel like I wasted the weekend because I didn't have any other plan. Well, it's the same thing in business. Is we go into a weekend going, I want to have nothing to do. I just want to sit and chill, but we don't do that because we get uneasy and we, in fact, want to have something planned. Same thing in business is we start a business, we start selling products, we start selling services and going through the whole thing and go, by the time invoicing comes and all these other details that have to happen with a small business, we get really frustrated and really anxious, quite frankly, about those details that come in small business. And so we got to talking, and here's what I told him were the two most important things that you need to build as a small business owner, as an organizational leader, before anything else. It's not employees, it's not sales and marketing, it's not any of the back end stuff that you might think it is. In fact, when a small business owner gets started, a lot of times they think, well, man, if I can just get my bookkeeping right, then I'll be in great shape. If I can just get my sales and marketing right, then I'll be in great shape. If I can just get my operational workflows right, then I'll be in great shape. Well, the reality is, if you don't have these two things I'm about to tell you, and they're not snake oil, it's just reality. You got to sit down, and quite frankly, they're really hard to do. If you don't have these two things in order, it doesn't matter how good your sales and marketing is, doesn't matter how good your administration is, your operations, your customer service, your HR, doesn't matter how good any of that is. Because if these two things aren't there, it's going to hurt you in the long run. And so you may have some early success, but in the long run, it's really going to struggle. In fact, there was a business here locally that just this week put out on Facebook that they were going to stop business, not because sales weren't good, but it's because of things going on internally in the business. And I want to make an argument that they didn't have these two things in place. Number one is a strong, compelling vision story. Now, don't leave. You're going to go, oh, Scott's on this again. All he talks about is vision story. Where there's a reason that I talk about it over and over and over again. It's because vision, or a lack of vision, is the world's greatest problem when we don't have it. It's the world's greatest advantage when we do, right? And so if we go back historically, I tell people all the time, it wasn't Jim Collins or Peter Drucker or some of the great management minds who came up with the idea of vision. Really, vision has been with us since the foundation of the earth. Now, I don't know where you are with your faith walk, but I'm going to contend and really hold to the conviction that God himself, when he created the world, had a vision of what this was going to look like. Because we're told that everything was formless and void. It was just kind of amoebic. It was out there floating around. And then God took all of this and put it into a formation. And so there had to have been a vision in order for that kind of ambiguous substance to come down and to be formed. And so if you have a vision story, if you have a detailed snapshot of where you're going in the future with your business, then you've got the first crucial element to everything else. And so now all of a sudden, your sales has a place to go towards. Your administration has a place to support. Your operations has something that it's going to actually pull through. Whereas if you don't have any of that, then you're just making widgets left and right, and this widget may not look like this widget, and they all go out the door to separate locations. And we don't want that. That's when chaos ensues. That's why so many times small business owners feel so chaotic, is because they have no vision. There's no place. And that's where I keep going back to the to what God told the prophet in Habakkuk 2:2. Write the vision down so that those who read it may run. So when a vision is written down, guess what happens? Those who read it run. Now, they can either run towards the vision Or they can look at that vision and go, ooh, I want to run away from this vision. I'm not interested in that. So I gave this example to a group a couple weeks ago. If I got in my car and drove up and I said, hey, come on in, let's go, your first question would be, where are we going, right? And so we come in, hey, let's go, and then you get in the car and I tell you, we're going to the dentist office. Now, no offense to my dentist friends, but you're just not very well liked, right? And so if you were to hop in my car and I told you that we were going to the dentist office, you would likely go, I've got other things to do. On the flip side of that, if you hopped in my car and told you, hey, we're going to Disney World, you'd be like, man, I am all in. Let's roll. Let's go with that. And so I've given you a vision. Now with that vision, you choose to run towards that vision or to run away from that vision. Think about that in relation to your employees. You lay out a vision, right? Now your employees have something that they can either rally around, run towards, or something that they're just simply going to run away from because they're not interested. Think about that as it relates to brands, right? So if you're hungry and you decide somewhere in this world that you want a quick eat, you're not really interested in quality, you're not really interested in all the accoutrements that might come with that, you just want something to fill your belly to move on and move out. Well, then you probably opt for, say, a McDonald's or something like that, right? Functional, cheap, quick, in and out. So the vision they've laid out is functional, cheap, and quick. Now, on the flip side of that, if you take something like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse to sit down for an experience and really enjoy, or like a Del Frisco's Steakhouse, to really enjoy the experience, they've laid out a much different vision. They want high price, high quality, sit down, enjoy. And so now you have a choice. McDonald's has given you a vision. Del Frisco or Ruth Chris has given you a vision. Now you're going to run towards one and run away from the other. Write the vision down so that those who read it may run. You may be feeling chaotic simply because you don't have a vision written down of what you're trying to do. All right? Let me repeat that because my phone just went on low battery mode. So you may feel chaotic because you don't have a vision written down of what it is that you need to have done. That's the first element. You got to have that vision in place. The second element that you have got to have before you've got the sales and marketing, before the administration, before the operations, the HR, the legal, everything else, you've got to have and go ahead and determine what your team meeting structure is going to look like. Now again, wait a second. Before you throw tomatoes at me, you might say, well, I'm by myself. Who am I going to meet with? You're going to meet with yourself. And so you are the owner. You are the CEO. You are the head of administration, the head of operations, the head of sales and marketing, and the head of HR. You're the head of all of those things. And you need to have time. That's where we talk about working on your business instead of in your business. You need to have time to be able to sit down, remove yourself from the day-to-day weeds of what's going on, and look globally at each one of those sections. And so, for instance, me, Scott the owner, needs to talk to Scott the CEO and figure out where are we going wholesale in the business day-to-day. Then Scott the CEO needs to talk with Scott the salesperson and say, where are we at in the pipeline of our sales? Scott the CEO needs to talk to Scott the administration person and say, where are we at with our accounting, our bookkeeping, those sorts of things. And so even if you don't have any other personnel than yourself, now if you do, you got no excuses, right? We've got to set a team meeting structure. This is a meeting that flows every single week, at least one. I actually recommend 4 different types of meetings, so we'll get into that later. One type of meeting where you've got an action item set, a list, maybe even a digital spreadsheet. That's it. Where you just write down what it is that you talked about, who's in charge of that, when it's supposed to get done, any associated notes, and then next week when you come back, guess what's front and center, right in front of you. Now it's time to implement. The only way you're going to be able to implement is if you have regular conversation. The only way you're going to have regular conversation that's meaningful is if you have a place to go. That's your vision story. And so if you don't have a vision story and you don't have a means of communication through a team meeting structure, even if it's just yourself, then chances are you're just going to continue to live in chaos, and I don't want you to do that. So let me take the flip side of this. If you do have a vision story, a detailed snapshot of where you're going, if you do have a team meeting structure, a defined place to have conversation either with yourself or with your team, with virtual assistants, it doesn't matter what it is. If you've got the vision story in place, a detailed snapshot of where you're going, and you've got a means of communication, then you're going to start being purposeful. I'm not saying that tension's going to be removed. There's always tension in business. But you're going to start being purposeful towards where you're going in your business, and there's going to be a regular stream of not only communication, but also implementation and accountability built if you've got those 2 things. Vision story, team meeting structure, everything else is there to support those 2 primary things. Let me put it this way. If you're married and you and your spouse make a regular habit of sitting down in the evenings talking about your future because you've got it written out, you're more than likely statistically going to be in great shape in your marriage. If you and your spouse instead don't have any articulation as to where you're going as a family, and you continuously and consistently avoid talking together in the evenings, statistically things are not going to go well for you. And so if it's that way in our families, why in the world would it be any different in our business? And vice versa. If it's that way in our business, why in the world would it be any different in our families? So I want to ask you, I want you to make a priority right now. If you've not ever spent time sitting down and writing out a vision story, you need to do that. You need to block off an hour of your time to just sit down and think about the future of your business. How far out do you see? What kind of family and freedom do you want that to have? What kind of finances do you want to have? What kind of product and service do you want to sell? What kind of client do you want to serve? What personnel are you going to need? What culture are you looking to build? What clients do you want to work with? You need to draw all that out, and then once you've got that, then create a regular setup for how you're going to communicate, either just with yourself or with yourself and any other team members that you've got. If you do those things and do them consistently, you will win. You might say, Scott, what are we going to win? You're going to win progress towards your vision, and there's no better win than the progress towards the vision that you have, because I believe it's something that God has put inside of you. And so we want to take that vision and do some really spectacular things with that vision, but it's going to take a methodical, step-by-step approach of having clarity of where you're going, and also in having clarity in the communication that you and your team are going to have to be able to get there. Hey, if you need help with that, let us know. Go to mybusinessonpurpose.com. We've also got the incredible 4 Steps to Business Freedom program, where, guess what? Step number 1, write your vision story. We can help you do that. Go check us out at mybusinessonpurpose.com. Thanks for joining us. Have a great Friday afternoon, and then a great weekend for all of you listening on Facebook. For those of you here on the podcast, thanks for joining in. We'll be right here next week on the Business on Purpose podcast.